Hi chaps, Simo P here from Beard, Biceps and Batchat. Today I'm going to do a review on this cheeky little chap, which is the Pz.Kpfw 5.4, or better known as the Ram Panzer. Now you'll notice this tank has not been purchased yet. I am working on my missus, but I'm looking at her now. She's giving me the eyes. I don't think I'm buying this one. Nope, definitely not buying this one. But I still wanted to do a review of it, sorry, because it's a fairly unique tank. Originally, this first came out on PC as part of the Founders Pack, and there's a couple of things that makes this tank fairly unique and quite a lot of fun. So the tank itself, I'm just going to call it the Ram Panzer, it's better than the full name, is a tier 5 German medium premium. Makes sense. That's pretty much where it ends at tier 5. So the hull itself is actually the hull of the Panther, which is the tier 7 medium in the German tech tree. Now that in itself makes it quite good, especially at tier 5. So the first thing to note is front plate 71 to 90 mils. It works at about 85 millimeters angled, so at tier 5 that is going to bounce quite a lot of shots. You're pretty much going to be safe from everything that isn't maybe a heavy firing premium, some of the TDs, but it essentially is fairly overpowered at tier 5, which makes it a little bit interesting. Now because it's a Panther hull, it also has the Panther speed on it as well. So if we bring this up fairly quickly, we can see that forward speed can get up to 55 kilometers per hour. Now that's not too bad for a medium. In fact, that's still pretty good. But what you need to do is consider that with its weight. Now with full equipment, this tank weighs about 44 tons. Now, just to put that into perspective, 44 tons at tier 5 with 870 horsepower, able to reach 55 kilometers per hour. This is where the tank gets its name from. This thing is utterly lethal when ramming other tanks. And a lot of tanks are going to be smaller than you. So if when I go over the gun it's a bit underwhelming, don't worry. Just ram people, you'll have much better success and you'll be a lot happier and you'll have a ton of fun doing it. So just moving on to the gun. The turret and gun are the stock gun from the tier 5 medium, so it's a 7.5 centimeter L48 gun. Now that's got a couple of downsides. Well, to be honest, only one downside really. It's got the weakest pen of all tier 5 tanks at 110 millimeters. It's not going to pen a lot frontally, which can cause a couple of problems, but I'll cover that later. What's quite good on this tank though is the DPM on it. So you're doing 15 to 16 rounds a minute. That works out 1,540 damage per minute. So the DPM's good on it. The amount of shots you're getting off. The accuracy on the tank itself is 0.37, so it's a fairly accurate gun. You're not going to miss too much. The aim time's 2 seconds, so the gun handling on this tank is pretty good. The only thing that lets it down is just the penetration on it. Now, the other thing to note is, since the turret actually comes from a tier 5 tank, let me just go to overall, the armour on it is shocking. It is a giant weak spot. What's quite interesting is the commander's hatch on this. Generally, you never want someone to shoot your hatch. It's normally a giant weak spot. On this, it's got the best armour on the tank, so if anything, encourage him to do it. But the rest of the turret is really weak. So if people are shooting your turret, they're going through. There's not much you can do about it. So one of the other sort of quite interesting things, especially when you look at this tank, just by the design of it, is the gun depression on it. The gun depression on this tank is actually 10 degrees of gun depression. So what that allows you to do is to sort of play fairly well around hilly terrain, hills, and if you angle your tank just right, sort of like this, shooting down, they're not able to put shots into your turret, which is your obvious weak point, and you're able to get shots into them, and they're shooting either into your fairly well protected and well angled lower glacis or into your hull armour, which again isn't too bad, and you can sort of live with that. So because this tank's quite unique, what I really wanted to touch on was the play style of this tank. So the main sort of strengths you have here with the tank is you've got great hull armour, you've got the second highest amount of HP of all tier 5 German tanks. Now with that information you would think, yep, great, I can brawl with this tank, I'll probably come out on top because of my hull armour and my HP. So on the defensive side it is quite good. The problem is the gun. Your penetration isn't great, especially frontally. You're not likely to get through unless you're aiming at weak spot and at very close ranges where there's a lot of minute movements that can throw off your aim. You're not always guaranteed to hit weak spots. So you don't really, if you can avoid it, want to end up in a brawling situation. You're better off actually playing this tank as a mobile flanker. So think of it as a more heavily armoured, much bigger Cromwell. You've got the speed to get round the flanks and to put your gun and get shots into the flanks of other tanks. And what you really want to do is just rip them apart with your DPM. If you can get round the flanks, your penetration isn't going to matter. Hopefully you're going to put 3-4 shells into the side of, or the flank of the red team before they can react. And worst case scenario, if that's not working, just ram them. You'll be fine, you'll do more damage anyway. You also, as much as possible, need to keep this tank mobile when there is RT on the map. Now the reason I say that is this tank has a very, very large silhouette for a tier 5 vehicle. It makes you a massive target for artillery. So take advantage of the mobility, make sure you keep moving, use as much hilly terrain as possible to make as much of your gun depression as possible, and just really use it as more of a flanking tank and resist the urge as much as possible to rush to the front line, to sort of spearhead the attack, keep going for the flanks and just rip people apart that way. What I'd be really interested to see, guys, is how you guys are getting on ramming stuff. I would love to see a couple of clips or some screenshots of you just doing absolutely monumental biblical carnage against other tanks that you've managed to catch unawares as you throw yourself at them. So leave some in the comments below. Hopefully you're enjoying the content and the videos, guys. Feel free to try and give me some things I can say to my missus to let me get this tank. And if you're enjoying everything, please like and subscribe to the channel, chaps, and I'll catch you next time, which will probably be some T59 gameplay.